Friedman, and welcome to Public Forum. For those of you who had to take the 4 or 5 train, we apologize. We have I don't even know whether to blame our governor or our mayor. These are sad times. Welcome to Public Forum. At Public Forum, we have conversations with amazing people. We do things around the programming. We do not produce plays and musicals, but we do just about everything else. And when I took over Public Forum from the amazing Jeremy McCarter, who founded it, and with my partner Stephanie Ibarra, Jeremy said, I hope that you will have, I write music, if you don't know, I'm a composer and lyricist sometimes, but Jeremy said, I hope you'll have conversations, more conversations about songwriting and music, because it's something that we don't do very much of, and that people are actually interested in hearing about, like process. And the other night we had a really exciting argument about 1-4-5, about like chord structure. So anyway, we found that audiences seem to be excited by that, and so we've had this series of truly unbelievable, and for me, like fanboying out conversations with a bunch of amazing composers, lyricists, songwriters, people who make albums and theater and other kinds of forms. So tonight we have truly amazing, we've been having a really fun time backstage, the amazing Mitski and the amazing Tom Kitt. It's a great pair. So I want to welcome them to the stage. I'm just going to start and say that the thing that was discovered upstairs was that Tom Kitt, who has done the arrangements for like the Pitch Perfect, you know those like battles of a cappella where they do all the pop songs? Tom Kitt has never heard of or heard until just upstairs the song Umbrella by Rihanna. So I don't mean to shame you, but it was like it was legitimately confusing.
We looked at each other for like a hot second.
It was like he was like, "What's Umbrella?" And we had a moment where we were like,
"What do you mean?"
"You sweet country bumpkin." And then we were playing it, and I'd actually then forgotten the weird Jay-Z solo that it begins with. So a lot happened upstairs.
I blame it on raising 17,000 children.
Yeah, I think Tom was having children when Umbrella came out. But then we were listening to it, and I was saying, Umbrella is the song around at that time, and in Single Ladies, where there's all these songs where they begin, and they seem to have no bass line and no chord structure for a very long time, in a slightly sinister and also slightly sexy and exciting way. So that, which has now I think taken over pop music almost entirely, I feel like it can originate with Umbrella. So I recommend that you all, on your way home, really pay a little more attention to Umbrella. And that is the end of our Public Forum on songwriting. I want to welcome you two to the stage. A question that I'd love to, this is like the obvious question to start with, but I'd like to start with it, which is, so far we've had, this is the 4th of these that we've done, and the origin stories, I come from no musical people, so it's been amazing to me how everyone's like, well, my grandfather was a cantor in like Uzbekistan, and so I'm interested just in origins, in family and teachers, and where music first entered your life and in what ways. And I know that you both have, interesting stories about that, or at least like actual origins. In my case, I'm like, nobody knows. One day I started doing this. It's terrible. So Tom, I don't know if you want to talk about like your little days and just where you started, where music found you.
Sure. I have my father. I always people's eyes sort of widen when I tell them, but my father was actually a Major League Baseball player. He was drafted by the Yankees when he was a teenager, so left. And when you're Jewish, this is a big deal.
Yeah.
Really? But he was from Oceanside, Long Island, and he was what they call a bonus baby, where the Yankees noticed him. He was striking out, 20 batters in a game, and he was part of the 61. He's in the 61 yearbook, so it's crazy. You see him with Whitey Ford and Roger Maris and Mickey Mantle. But he decided to go back to school and actually became an economist. but is one of the smartest people about music. If anyone, he's smart about everything, but he just loves music and kind of just absorbs it and listens to it all day long. And I'm the youngest of three, and my brother and sister were both taking piano lessons. And when I was 4 years old, I just kind of sat down and started playing what they were playing without music. And I found out later that I have perfect pitch, which means that I have the ability to basically just hear a note and tell you exactly what that note is. And when you start to study and learn harmony and theory and chord structure, you start to be able to see the puzzle of music, and if you recognize it and can hear it, you can just start to play by ear. So that's what I was doing at an early age, and my mother took me to the piano teacher in our town who was teaching both my brother and sister, and she said, I would usually don't take on students this young, but when I sat down and played for her, she took me on, and so that's where I started studying, and I studied classical music pretty much through the age of 11, 12, and then I started to listen to Billy Joel and Elton John, and I actually was at a camp, a Jewish camp. But it was this incredible camp run by a rock journalist, and they had a whole rhythm and blues element. They had a band, a house band that was based on the Blues Brothers. So I started to solo Ray Charles and Sam and Dave. So all of these things were swimming around, the singer-songwriter world, the classical world, and this rhythm and blues world. And it really wasn't until college when I met Brian Yorkie and we wrote the Varsity Show together that I got immersed in theater and decided to become a composer for the musical theater.
In your writing, does piano drive, or at least did it originally drive your writing of songs? Did you, and you mentioned Billy Joel and Elton John, so I guess different people write in different ways, so I'm just interested, at least early on, what drove the writing part?
It definitely did, especially when I heard some of the more orchestral and virtuosic piano songs that Billy Joel and Elton John and Bruce Hornsby were doing. It just blew my mind. And then you would hear about their classical backgrounds and what they brought to it. So anytime I heard a song begin with piano, whether it was something that was lyrical and slow and beautiful, or something that had, Roy Bittan is another hero of mine, the E Street Band, all those early Springsteen records, Jungleland and Thunder Road, where I just couldn't get enough of it. So I would sit at the piano and play all of these things when I should have been playing my Mozart and Beethoven, and I was playing, Born to Run, beginning to end. But yeah, it definitely did feed my desire to write songs, and those were kind of my heroes that inspired me.
And just one other question, when you met Brian, who Tom and Brian burned a bunch of shows together, including Next to Normal and If Then, what was it that you found in him, or that he found in you? I mean, the Varsity Show, I went to Harvard, so we like to call the Varsity Show the Hasty Pudding Show of Columbia, but you can call it what you like. I'm teaching, we'll deal with that later. I guess, what did you find in Brian that was exciting, or what was it about a collaborator or a lyricist or that?
Well, Brian and I certainly, I think, are kindred spirits in our passion for music, and especially a lot of the music that I've been talking about and beyond. And then, of course, Brian has his tastes that I'm introduced to, and vice versa. But what I loved about Brian, especially when you write music and lyrics, when you suddenly have a collaborator and you're forced to kind of get outside of yourself. And I remember there's a song in Next Normal called So Anyway that Brian gave me the lyrics to first, and I was writing it, and it was kind of a limerick form, and meaning that you have your first two lines that rhyme, and then you have your second, your third, and your fourth, and there's a fifth line. And there was an extra line. There were 6 lines, and I was writing it as a limerick, and I said, I think there's an extra line, and he said, yeah, that's intentional. And I said, okay. And it actually made the music go to another place. I had to think of a way that I could keep the music unresolved for an extra line, and it made the song much more interesting and emotional. So I feel like that's a little story about, but that's what Brian does. Brian points me to places and forces me to go to areas that I have to challenge myself and come up with new ideas. And I hope I do the same for him, but that's what makes a collaboration. That's what makes I feel our partnership special.
Was the extra line just technically, I guess a limerick is A-A-B-B-A. Was the extra line another A?
Another
or
B.
It was another B in the,
And then,
where was
before
it?
going back to the A.
So it was A-A-B-B-B-A?
So it's like, so anyway, I'm leaving. I thought you'd like to know your faithful come what may, but clearly I can't stay. I can't remember that way.
So
Here I go.
So it prolongs
We both
it.
go mad that way.
It prolongs it one more time.
Yeah, so that extra line. But then the music, the music is ascending. And it ascends one more time before resolving back.
Wow. I like to think of limerick form as the form of New York, I love you, but you're bringing me down. Because that's the song where I'm always like, that is a limerick. It's amazing. Mitski, I'd love to ask you the same question just about sort of origins and where music first entered your life. I know you have some good stories about your father that I've heard.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't really have any musicians in my family. My mother's a glass blower, so that's where I got my artistic temperament. But I think, but my father was really kind of like an amateur ethnomusicologist, where he just genuinely enjoyed really pretentious field recordings of like this culture's music, and he really loved like Appalachian folk and Irish and Scottish folk, and he loved like all the different music from Latin America, and he loved gamelan music, he loved throat singing music, Mongolian and Tibetan music, a lot of just like stuff that you would pretend to like just to be cool. He genuinely loved that stuff. So it would just be playing in my household, and that's what I'm familiar with, and that's now genuinely what I like as well. Yeah, so that's kind of, but I didn't have like a musical family. I think I just really enjoyed singing, and I spent a lot of my life in transit. I moved around a lot, and so a lot of times in cars or just in new houses that where there's nothing, I would just sing to myself, and I wouldn't have any friends. I would just like, music would keep me company. So that's kind of how I naturally became good at it.
You've talked a little bit, at least in interviews I've read, and about sort of being Japanese American and being neither Japanese or American, and I'm interested if that plays into how your music, and actually I'd like to push that a little further, like when did you start making your own music? Where did that come from? Not just what you inherited. So that was 2 questions, so I'm being a bad moderator, it's going well.
I'm gonna focus on the second part, and maybe I'll forget about the first part. I don't know what's gonna happen. So what was the second part of the question?
That was a lot of focus. The second part was just the simple when you started making your own music. You like singing, but then that.
So I didn't start writing music until much later, which for songwriters, like as a late teen, I think a lot of musicians start really young. But for me, I started writing really 17, 18. I really enjoyed singing, but I found that none of the songs I encountered actually said what I wanted to say. And I was singing in order to express myself, so I was feeling frustrated. So I was like, fuck it, whatever. I mean, am I allowed to swear in?
It's Joe's pub.
Okay.
Swear as much as you want, and at some point we'll order drinks.
Yeah, so I think that's how I started to write. A lot of the time I couldn't imagine myself as a writer because I always thought of myself as a singer. So it took me, again, a long time to present my music to people because I just assumed they were bad. And I think music, I mean, this is very abstract, but music really gave me a place to belong. I'm not Japanese, I'm Japanese and I'm not Japanese, I'm American, I'm not American. I moved around a lot, so I'm not from anywhere, and I found that being good at music gave me some kind of purpose, or gave me something to say, well, I'm here because, and then I could present my music and be like, and that's why I'm here. Like when often I would feel like I'm not allowed to be somewhere, or I don't belong somewhere, I could stand my ground and go, oh no, but this is what I can contribute, and that's what music became to me.
I wonder if on that note we could start, I'd love to look at something specific. I think we have something from Bury Me at Makeout Creek. Is that possible? Do we have Townie, perhaps? Is that a song we could talk about?
Sure.
Do we, the real question was not of you, but of the marvelous tech people.
Ready to roll.
Oh, they're amazing. The other day we had Dave Malloy emailing songs literally from the stage. It was a sad moment in Forum, so I'm feeling really impressed. Could you talk a little about that album? I'd be just interested in what inspired the album, and then if you don't mind talking about the specific song.
Sure. First of all, I didn't know until I literally got here that we were going to talk about my music, so I'm sorry. I thought we were going to talk about your music.
We're going to do that in a second, too.
Okay. So that I had just graduated from music conservatory, and I was living in Brooklyn/Queens/ wherever I could, and I had no money, no resources, and I just had a few friends in bands who had guitars and drums and stuff. So I made that album in makeshift studios in people's houses, anywhere I could, and that was kind of the spirit of the album, where instead of going out and trying to find ways to realize my vision, I just kind of looked around at what I had and said, what can I do with what I have? And that's why it's kind of punky, it's kind of grungy, it's very distorted. A lot of the distortion, I think, comes from the fact that the instrumentation is sparse, so it's a way to fill it up a little bit. It's like very logistically distorted that way, I think. So yeah, that's where it came from, just like what can I do with my little resources?
That's often the question. Can we play it?
I hate this.
I'm interested, I mean, the final lyric of the chorus of that song is pretty evocative, and I'm interested just where do, I'm always interested even in my own writing, like where do words and melodies and chord structures find themselves in the things that, the earworms that you have, and I'm interested just where did the words for that, like where did the lyrics or the, like what came first, which is the dumbest question, but also true as a question.
Well, so for me, in most of my songwriting, the words and the vocal melody come first, and the chords and the arrangement almost don't matter to me, or it's interchangeable. A lot of people write chordally, where they write chord progressions first and say, okay, what vocal melody can we put on top of this? But for me, and going back to my upbringing, I come from a background of not having resources. I don't know when I'm going to have a guitar or a piano, and I'm moving around, and I'm usually in a car, and I'm usually alone. And my upbringing is that I sang songs to myself, and so in my writing even today, I want to make sure that the vocal melody in the song can stand on its own without any backing instrument. And so that's where it comes from, and that's what was written first.
And what inspired the song's subject? I mean, I don't know what to, like, how, I don't want to lead you, but.
I just was a young girl partying, and I was bored of it, but I didn't know what to do with myself. Felt like I had all this energy, but I didn't know where to put it, and I felt like my life wasn't gonna go anywhere. At the time when I wrote it, I felt like I didn't have any talent, and I loved music, but I didn't see myself being a musician. It's just, I was like, what am I gonna do? So there's just this image of like a person partying in despair, I guess, is the image. And I also had just come out of music conservatory. I spent, a couple of years anyway, surrounded by just kind of contemporary classical douchebags, and I was just like, fuck it. Like, here's a simple fucking song, and I think it's pretty good, and fuck atonality. Just like, here's just a simple chord progression that's been used over and over and over again. And I wanted that also to parallel the idea of like the teenager in a suburb or in a town where it's just like, this is what they know, and it's repetitive, and it's like, it's been done before, and they don't know what to do with it, but it's there. It's just like, I wanted to parallel that.
But then, as I think you said, the distortion and the amazing effects on your voice, which I feel like as about 2/3 of the way through, it starts becoming grander, or something amazing happens. I know so little about production, so I'm like, this is where you can tell me. But the song may be simple, as you say, but a lot is being done. I'm interested, just one more question about this song, of what do the musicians you work with or in the studio, what do you find that does to, you may have a simple song you're singing without any of that, but then when we hear it, the distortion and what you've been able to do with your voice and what the musicians are providing is a lot. I'm interested what you feel like they bring or don't bring to the song as you conceive it.
So, I used to work with a lot more musicians. Now lately it's just me and the producer, and we switch off on instrumentation, and I think that's why a lot of my records have a lot of amateurs playing, because it's either me playing or the producer Patrick Hyland playing, and neither of us are like virtuosos. When I used to have musicians come in, they would almost get frustrated with how simple it is, because I think it doesn't, you don't get to really show off with my melodic lines. A guitarist would come in for a solo, and they'd like try to embellish it, and I'd be like, no, do it how I wrote it. And I think it would be frustrating. That said, I do think that really great musicians can make the simplest lines make you cry. So I think there's that line, there are no small parts, only small actors. I think it's the same way with music. I think it's very difficult to write something simple and good. So.
They're doing Julius Caesar right now in rehearsal, and I in high school played the role of Trebonius, and I'm going to say the role of Trebonius is a small part. I was a small actor, but the part is small.
I was Slats in Good News, and it was also really small.
We're going to just compare the sad, small, how untalented we once were. This is a real pity party on stage. Tom, I guess I'd like to now turn to you and look at I think you brought in some lyrics and there's a piano behind you, so I think maybe we're gonna get you showing us something?
Yeah, well, I just want to say first, that's a kick-ass fucking song that you just played. That's a great Sorry for the expletive, but I had to. The song deserves
Joe's
it.
Pub, in a public forum in Joe's Pub, we can do whatever we want. Lots of nudity.
Yeah, so I have a new musical that I'm working on with the writer John Logan, who wrote the play Red, and is a prolific screenwriter as well. John actually reached out to me because he was a fan of Next to Normal, and I was a fan of his, and I just pitched him this idea in his office. This was a few years ago. And the basic idea is, I've always been fascinated with comics and superheroes, and especially the origin part of the story and the human part of the story. You know, so I'm fascinated with Bruce Wayne, and that part of the story to me feels more compelling than when they go to CGI and it suddenly becomes chase sequences. You know, especially what they do, because how many things can you destroy? How many things can you blow up? But what's interesting is when you see how he manages to have this secret and keep this part of him away from everybody, and can you have a relationship with anyone when you're, so it sort of began in that world. And then as I started to develop it, I realized, you know, the superhero part of what I'm after is really just something that propels our characters. But wouldn't it be cool if you did a superhero story where you never even went there, where you actually never saw Batman, you just kind of hinted at this possibility. So John and I talked about this, and we basically developed the story of a mother and her teenage son who have had a tragedy in their life, and the husband was tragically killed 2 years before the play begins, and they're both reeling, especially the teenage kid. And one of the things that really is kind of a saving grace for him is this love of superheroes, and he draws and imagines this world. And there's a stranger who they haven't met in their building, and suddenly takes on the characteristics of a superhero, and could be, couldn't be. It's kind of a mystery whether he actually is. And I've been writing this really from a similar place of Next to Normal, where Brian and I were working on Next to Normal for years, and it just was a story that was pouring out of us, both in the people we knew and our experiences. It just felt like a story that we had to write, we had to tell. And I know for superhero, especially as a father, the world is scary. And as a child, I was always, I always recognized the mortality of my parents, and it really frightened me. And when you're a parent, it's even more frightening to consider your mortality and what that means to the kids you're now raising. Also the things in the world that you just, when your kids ask you, is something going to be okay, and you tell them it's going to be okay, but you don't really know. And you have to try to talk both them and yourself through it. So these are themes that just feel really, they're bubbling in me, they feel important to kind of channel through my writing. So it's really from the point of view of a father. So yeah, I have a song, and so I'm writing music and lyrics for the first time. For the theater, I have a band that I've recorded with and performed with for some years now, but meeting Brian, of course, and then working with Amanda Green and Lin-Manuel, and now Nell Benjamin. You know, I've been so lucky to work with these unbelievably talented writers, so it's kind of scary.
Really good lyricists are the people they're like magical unicorns.
So it's scary to go out on your own, and I just kind of dared myself to write a first act and fall flat on my face, but it went well enough to keep going, and now we have a whole draft. It's interesting because what you were talking about in terms of writing, in this process, I kind of just sit down and a lyrical idea and music kind of comes out at the same time. So I had a hook. John Logan, writing the book, had given me this hook, My Dad, the Superhero, that this teenage boy sings, imagining what it would be like if his father actually was a superhero. And they both kind of came out of me at the same time. And also, to your point, what I love about it is its simplicity. It just feels like something that you could overwrite, and it feels like the right size. So I'll play it.
Awesome. Some new stuff. This is exciting.
Brand new.
Tonight we have a lot of songs in reaction to fathers. I guess that's something that we're looking at.
What's that saying?
We're looking at fathers a lot tonight, so we can all talk about that after we're off stage.
Okay. My dad, the superhero. My dad, the star. My dad, the bolt of lightning, sent to us from far away. Won't you stay with us? You'll come to our rescue when hope seems lost, defending our honor, no matter what the cost might be. Just the three of us. And you'll never die. You'll never die. My dad's a superhero, might miss again, but I won't spend another birthday wallowing in shame and tears. There'll be cheers of joy. Maybe I could go with you to work one day. You could teach me the business. I won't get in your way, you'll see. I will be your superboy. And you'll never die. You'll never die. And over time our special bond will only grow. I won't think of the things that happened years ago. If it's late at night and you're still not home, I know that you will be alright. I know. My dad's a superhero. I love my mom. I make her feel so special. And life will be so calm and free. Just the three of us. And you'll never. My dad's a superhero. My dad's a superhero. My dad's a superhero.
I love that.
I love that too. Janine Tesori was here yesterday, and she was talking about just what she was trying to be specific about theater song form. I don't know. We could argue about if there's differences, but she was speaking very specifically of the need to have something that happens, something that repeats, something that then has some kind. It was funny. Something that about 2/3 of the way through a theater song, you need to go away to some new, unexpected emotional place, and then you need to come home, and then you need to have something that's going to pay off that you set up at the beginning of the song, and funny because, and I don't want to say, like, it's the opposite of formulaic. It was like funny when she said it, and I was like, yep, every song that I like in a show. I'm not sure that in other forms it's the same need, but that the way you have the sort of depart I don't want the bridge.
Yeah.
That's called I've been teaching songs this year, and it turned out that all the names, when you start using them, you're like, oh, it turns out it's not the bridge, but the bridge. And then that return where you don't say die and you'll never, stop, feels like that payoff is because you've said it, like we'd get it, but we wouldn't, it hits, it's interesting.
Can I also say, I can just imagine this song being so many people's audition song, because it's so satisfying as the performer to go, never. I just like, oh my god, the payoff, speaking of payoff, just like right there. Yeah.
Well, it's funny you said that the hook is my dad the superhero, because the real hook is and you'll never.
But it's one of those places where when that lyric came out, it's like that's everything, and that's the thing that honestly in your head is always.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, and you could try to overdo that, and you could.
Right.
But when you have a piece of music that's hopefully working in the right way and it's leading up to that, and you allow the performance, and seeing like we've actually. So I'm getting to do this at the O'Neill this summer, and we just
which is
passed.
a developmental
It's
sort of place where you get to go to develop in Connecticut to develop new musicals.
And we just passed this really talented teenager, and we've seen.
You're going to destroy him.
And he's just like yesterday. The reader, if you do auditions, when you do auditions, there's a reader who's reading with the actor, and she was crying from him. It was this. We all kind of looked at each other like, this is right. So to hear this kind of thing in his voice is going to be.
That's amazing.
feel very privileged.
I wanted to ask about voice. We were talking upstairs a little about it, but I'm so dumb that I can't sing basically at all. So when I write, for me, the fun is almost entirely like someone one day will sound good singing this song. This is horrible. I can throw away a joke. That's like the one thing I can do. In a song, I can throw away a joke, but I can't even deliver a joke. Just throw it away. You both write and I don't want to say on yourselves, but you're both writers who sing and perform and have performed in venues like this one. I'm interested what you feel like that does, and then I want to ask a question that something Meredith Monk brought up, but first just how thinking about your instrument affects, you just sang beautifully a song for us, but that you're now conceiving for someone else. Does your skill at singing, do you feel like it gets in your way? And in your case, how much is your instrument a crucial part of the music you make? So I guess I have that question for both of you. I don't know who wants to go first, but I'm interested in voice.
Well, just quickly for me, I always enjoy writing outside of my limits, and they're real. That's a voice, and I've been so fortunate to work with people who are just so brilliant at doing this. I enjoy doing it, but I would never write material that had to be suited. That's a song that I can pull off, and it's the one that when people ask me to sing from the show, I'll do that one. But there are plenty of songs that I can, and I like.
Now you're gonna go do them, and we'll laugh at you.
But I love that, and what I do because I really like to when I write songs for the first time, put them in the keys that I'm thinking, put them in the voice. So I will send these demos of me and my falsetto singing the female character because that's where it lives, and I often ask, is this going to be weird? But I feel like if I sing it down the octave, if I try to transpose it for myself, the song's just not going to come out off in the way. And keys really matter. It's interesting for me, especially just I guess because of the pitch, but. If something gets transposed down a half step or up a half step and you conceive it to be, it takes some getting used to. Sometimes it's a great discovery, but sometimes the song just doesn't have the same timbre. So anyway, that's the thing. I do love to perform and be able to sing songs that I've written. For my band, want to be in a wheelhouse that's comfortable, but for the theater, I love to write outside of that.
Well, let's see. I almost exclusively write for my voice, so I find that it can be limiting actually because I end up writing in the same range, just because I kind of know my range, And I tend to write things that I'm good at, so that limits me as well. And maybe I might want to write something, but then discover that I can't really sing it very well, and then discard it. And I also find that, over the years I sing more and more, I become a better singer. As I become a better singer, I become a better writer, because my range gets better and I can do more things. So I think we're in a different, I would love to start writing for other people, but at the moment I kind of am limited to my voice and what it's good at, what it's bad at.
What would you say it's good at? And I have feelings about that, but I'm interested. No, but you said what it's good at, so what would you, when writing for your voice, what?
You know what, I think it's more just that when I'm writing, I already hear my voice, so there's almost no exploration. When you write something for someone else, you write the notes and then it's up to them to interpret it. But in my case, there's only one version of the song ever, unless someone else covers it.
Have you had that? Yeah. Have you had people cover it, and what's that experience like?
So when this one person on Twitter covered it, posted it online, and I was really genuinely happy that I realized the song was pretty good. Because for a long time I keep thinking that I'm a better singer than a writer, and so I keep feeling like I'm almost cheating as a writer. Where oh, this song is only working because my voice is pulling it off. So when I hear someone else cover it and it's still a good song in my opinion, I'm like, oh shit, it worked. I'm a writer, and it's a weird. I still have this complex where I think I'm not a writer.
I think everybody has that complex. I mean, that's the complex.
But I think your voice is such an extension of the artist that you are. I mean, you and for me, I would love to be that kind of artist. I mean, I hear singers who, even Springsteen and Billy Joel, and I mean, their voices just, or Gavin DeGraw, who's someone that I actually knew around, and it just amazed me that voice and the artist. And I would love to have that kind of thing. And I guess there are songs that I feel like I can write for myself that would show. I mean, that's a very personal song that I just played, and I feel like it shows the artist that I am. But I feel like there are so many people who interpret and sing the crap out of things, like the song we just heard. I mean, that's the thing that I wish I aspired to as a teenager, and I'm very happy on this side of things.
Well, and it's funny, I think of some of the singers that I most admire for their specific singing artistry, but for whom singing was almost like a backdoor, like Nina Simone or Louis Armstrong, where they're unbelievable singers, but in both cases it was like a side thing to the thing they were first doing, which is sort of a different, I don't know, I'm interested in that. We had Meredith Monk on the stage on Wednesday, and when I wasn't trembling, and then she was so nice. She talked a lot about writing from her voice, and she's written so much on her voice, and we had a really interesting conversation that I'm going to gender this conversation, I guess. Susan McClary, who's an amazing writer about music, has written about women's voices and opera, and the question of women's voices as instruments, that they were not. It's a slightly long-winded question, but it's worth it. That women's voices historically were not really considered instruments. They were vessels, but that men who played piano, especially composers who played piano, or composers like Paganini or Liszt who played violin, or orchestra, that's what discourse was, the intellectual part, and that women who sang were vessels of male writing. I mean, that's the history of music would play that out. And in fact, ways for men to kill women on stage, quite literally, and that women's voices had been used and had not been considered instruments of composers with, therefore, ownership and the intellectual underpinning of that voice. And that one thing Susan McClary's written about Meredith specifically, and it was really interesting asking Meredith about this herself, of the female voice as starting maybe with the blues, where women own their voice and own the music they are making, and that still continues to be politically tricky. And Tom, you've written at least 2 shows that I've seen in which you and Brian wrote very much on a single lead role, huge, virtuosic, and emotionally complex, but on a female singer. And in both cases, I think of the woman who originated Next to Normal and If Then, Alice Ripley and Idina Menzel, and I was wondering about the complications of that, of being men writing on women, extraordinary women, but still writing women's lives or thoughts, and in your case, Mitski, of being a woman singing and writing, and what that means. It's a really tricky, thorny area, but I feel like it's worth spending a little moment in. I don't know, Mitski, if you have a thought about that.
Yes, I do.
Correct. I'm sorry that was so long-winded.
No. Thank you. I find it's interesting because I'm in this position where I also write my own material. It's interesting because even as I write my own material and I'm the one singing and it's my voice and I'm the one controlling it, there's still this perception that it comes from somewhere else. Like, it is my voice, I am controlling it and dictating what it does, and yet there's this perception that I'm this fevered priestess where, like this vessel through which a voice comes, and I have no real control over it, and it's interesting. I get comments like that on Twitter. A lot of interview questions are like that, and it's just like that are based on the assumption that I don't know what I'm doing when it is my voice, and it's so fascinating to try to unravel that because it speaks to the fact that women truly, or female identifying people truly are seen as not having any autonomy or authority. The fact that I am perceived as not having control over my own creations, or that I have no idea where they come from, so to try to wrap that up, I could go on and on, but it's just,
you could go on.
It's so fascinating to me how I can write it and sing it and record it and present it and still have it perceived as like, oh, you're so lucky to have this. Like, it's such a gift. And I'm just like, I made it from scratch.
We were talking upstairs about a bunch of people, about Mariah Carey, and then specifically there's an amazing podcast about Whitney Houston, and it is oddly Oprah in this interview, but they played this sort of famous Oprah interview of Whitney, but where Oprah is saying to her over and over again, it's like the money shot of the interview, saying, but your voice is a national treasure, and Whitney loses it, and Oprah keeps saying, but your voice is a natural treasure, and I'm such an idiot that they point out, they're like, Oprah's not saying you are a national treasure. She's saying, you're a vessel for this amazing thing. Why are you wasting it? And you're watching Whitney, who clearly spent a lot of time not wanting to be the vessel for this national, wanting to be her own person, and that there was a divide in the way that people saw her. So I feel like that's maybe one of the more spectacular, but not right word, tragic, recent versions of watching that split between a single person as if it wasn't something she made, it was as if it was a gift or something on loan to her. Tom, I'm interested then about the question of writing women's voices.
I've had really strong, influential women in my life. My mom, my grandmothers, my wife, my sister. Yes, as you know. And my wife was the one who introduced me to Brian Yorkie back in college. We were all friends, and I don't think I'd be writing for the theater if I hadn't met her. And then certainly with If Then and Next Normal, Brian very close with his mom and two sisters. So I just always felt a responsibility in the best way to bring the stories that I was living and seeing and hearing to light and to give human voice to those, to especially in a story like If Then, where I watch my wife working a job and raising 3 children and having to go back to work really early in this country after you've had children, and the kind of expectations and challenges. And as we were writing it, all of these articles that were in the zeitgeist about can women have it all? And there's a famous quote that says, yes, just not all at the same time. And those kinds of stories just feel really important, especially in the world today. So I feel proud to tell those stories, and I feel like the authenticity to tell them are these phenomenal women that have raised me and continue to influence me.
And how did and then in sort of handing that kind of role over to a performer, were there challenges in that? And in terms of, I'm thinking about Alice Ripley and Adina,
yeah, of
there's
course.
others obviously, but what were the challenges? Because then they have to, I always think about an actress in that way, they have to be this woman then. You go and watch Bette Midler playing Hello Dolly, and it's like she now has to, however the show is written, this is now hers, and what that, it's a little scary on a writer, but also what was that? What were those processes like? I mean, I think that's a long question. So.
Well, and I'm sure that if you and I sat down and talked about, we would both. I mean, I dreamed of writing the kind of roles that I saw that Patti LuPone and Bernadette Peters were playing when I was coming into this world, and there's just something about those powerful performances, those songs, and you dreamed of having a muse in the same way. You dreamed of having someone that you were writing a show for, shaping, and using that instrument. And I met Alice. Alice actually, I had seen her in Sideshow just out of college, and a mutual friend Melissa Justin, who was working with Kurt Deutsch at Chick-a-Boom, and Chick-a-Boom would do these fantastic concerts. Chick-a-Boom, by the way, is the record label that really was started with a mission of bridging pop and musical theater, so it would be original albums of original material from Anthony Rapp and Adam Pascal and Alice, and then it became, they started doing cast albums. But they would do these wonderful concerts, and Melissa called me and said, "Do you interested in accompanying Alice Ripley?" And I was like, "Yeah," and I was freaked out when I actually was in the same room with her. But we became friends, and just Alice had one of these voices that I would call it a stop the room voice. As soon as that person started singing, everyone would just look up and wonder what that was, and just be just immersed in it. And I felt like Diana Goodman had to be that. It just had to have this just otherworldly instrument that pierced you. And when Alice came, it was years later that Alice came to the role, it just felt like it was what I had dreamed all along. And then, having that, you then want to serve it and continue to write the right material for her. Adina came on board right at the beginning, so that was interesting to actually write a whole show for someone from scratch. And what was amazing about working with Adina was you know the belt, you know that powerful voice, but all of the other places, there's a song that I love called "You Learn to Live Without" that's really just this sort of slow kind of country song that doesn't allow her to really get there until the end, and Adina loved that kind of material. So it's interesting how you walk into a situation and you have these things that you think you know, but in theater, it's what you don't know that you feel like the process really begins.
Is there a song from Next to Normal that you might want to share with us? I'd be interested just what then working with that voice, what comes out of it. Is there something?
Something that Alice did?
Yeah.
See, here's the place where I have to put myself into.
Yeah, no, but I think I'd be interested if you don't mind.
Sure.
I mean, is that okay?
That is, of course it's okay. Just remember to make sure that I could play I Miss the Mountains, which actually, if anyone knows the words and I mess these up, you can just shout them out. But this was, and the interesting about I Miss the Mountains is that Brian sent me the lyric from, he was flying, I think cross country, and the lyric came out of looking out the window, and he sent it to me in email. And the way I write sometimes, because if I have an idea, I don't have time to get to the piano and write it out. I'll just write letters of notes in the margins next to the lyrics. And that was our opening night present for David Stone, was that original email with all my scratchy notes in it. And we had just written this sort of an AABA song, which is the section, you have an A, and then it's a repeat, and then it goes to the bridge. But we later, when we had Alice, wrote this verse for her, which hopefully I'll seems to dry up all my tears. And while she runs free and fast, seems my royal days are past. But I miss the mountains. I miss the dizzy heights. All the manic magic days and the dark depressing nights. I miss the mountains. I miss the highs and lows. All the climbing, all the falling, all the while the wild wind blows. Seeing you with snow and soaking you with rain. I miss the mountains. I miss the pain. Mountains make you crazy. Here it's safe and sound. My mind is crazy. My feet are on the ground. Everything is balanced here and on an even keel. Everything is perfect. Nothing's real. Nothing's real. And I miss the mountains. I miss the lazy climb, walking through the wilderness, spending all my time where the air is clear, it cuts you like a knife. I miss the mountains. I miss the mountains. I miss my life. I miss my life.
I wonder if I could ask you about puberty too at this point.
Can I just say what I
Yeah,
love
you
about
said-
musical theater songs is the modulation up at a crucial, at the fee point rather. Oh my gosh, I love that.
No, it's like again, it's a
I love it.
thing where you're just like, and that just happened, and it's so like magical and satisfying, even though you know what's happening. Like it's like you're like that was a modulation, and you're so glad it's happening right
There's certain
now.
things, and
It's like that.
it's the thing to study in this
Yeah.
art form is to see everything that came before you and learn from the craft of that. And there's a real craft and a tradition that goes with this art form, and then we all try to break it. But
I
you can't
know.
break it unless you know what the rules are.
Or if you're me, you do modulations and they come always in the wrong place, and then at the end of the song, no one ever knows how to clap. And worse, at the end of the musical, really no one knows to clap. And like, it's done. The musical is done. For time's sake, as much as anything, but I'm interested again in the moving from the question of the theater form to the album form, because I think they are both urged to large-scale forms using song to tell that form, but they're super different what they do. So I'm interested in Puberty 2, what was happening there, and then I'd love to look at a song from that too. But just what the impulse of that album was.
The impulse of the album was I had 2 weeks between years of tour to start and finish an album. So it was good because I had to be very decisive. Before I even went into the studio, I couldn't dawdle. I couldn't like improvise in the studio. I had to write everything beforehand. and then make quick decisions, and I think it was helpful. But yeah, it's kind of like a growth from growing me at Make a Creep. I had more resources, less time.
That's like no time. Sorry, you didn't write? Did you
No,
write?
no. So
okay, I just panicked. I like had a panic attack. I was like, oh, you just wrote and recorded that album.
No. So what
Tom and I both. It's like musicals take 19 years.
No, so what I had to do though is have everything written out before those 2 weeks, because I couldn't write in the studio. Yeah.
Is writing on tour? Is writing on tour cool or problematic?
I don't write on tour. I am inspired on tour, and I jot down ideas on tour, but I can't put them all together until I'm off tour. So when I come off tour, I have like a notebook full or like a phone full of little ideas, and then it's my time to organize them.
And what were some of the ideas that led to this album in particular?
So with me, I hate to disappoint, but
No, it's
I'm
fine.
more like when I make an album, it's not that I have an idea behind the album. It's more like I've amassed enough songs to make an album, so I'm gonna make one. And
That's an idea behind an album.
yeah, but I find that naturally, since I write these songs within a time period and I don't drastically change as a person within that time period, that there end up being themes. It's just never really as intentional as, you know.
So, but looking retrospectively, did things emerge when you look at the album that you made? Do you see things that came out of it or that were in it?
I think it's just it's very literally, it's like puberty too. I had come out of college. I was expected to be an adult, but it was like I hadn't quite figured it out yet. I still kind of felt like a child, but then I also had to really figure out my taxes. And it was just and just that feeling of knowing you're not a child anymore, and feeling like you're not a child anymore, but also not quite being ready to let it go yet. And because the alternative is then facing adulthood.
Yeah. I was hoping we could look at either Happy or at Best American Girl if you wanted. Do you have a great feeling?
Let's do Happy, only because I'm so sick of your Best American.
That was why I gave you a choice.
Thank you very much.
Of course. Can we listen to Happy? Yeah. Fantastic.
I'm so sorry, everybody.
Oh, they have phones.
Happy came to visit me. He bought cookies on the way. I poured him tea and he told me it'll all be okay. Well, I told him I'd do anything to have him stay with me. So he laid me down and I felt happy come inside of me. He laid me down and I felt happy. Oh, if you're going to take the train so I can hear a rumble, one last rumble. And when you go take the
talk to me a little bit about making the song? Because there's so much that's going on in it that I'd love just even your description of what you placed where and what's happening.
Yeah, I think actually I wrote the verses and the choruses separately. So maybe that's why they kind of a little bit sound disjointed. I almost wrote, if you just put the melody, set it aside from the rest of what's going on in the arrangement, I think it's very kind of bluegrassy or like folky. Just like, you can imagine just like a thing, if you're going to take the train, da, 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 da. And I like that, but I wanted to kind of, I wrote it and I was like, oh my god, this is a fucking country song. And then, so I wanted to put a twist on it, and I was listening to Portishead's Machine Gun, and there's just like that incessant, drum sample, and so, or maybe it might not even be a drum sample, just a sample, and I was inspired by that for the initial kind of da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then there's the drum sample track that goes da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da, and I think I heard that on a train track, and I was like, oh, that's good, I should make that into like a drum beat, and so I wanted to make that as tonal as a drum can be. I wanted to go da-da-da, 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 da-da-da-da, with no particular note in mind, just like in terms of pitches. I think that's about it. And again, I write the melody and the lyrics first, and then the chords kind of come later.
What's going on in the instrument break? The instrumental
Is it saxophone?
it's
Yeah.
like,
It's
saxophone.
who's playing that saxophone?
The producer Patrick Hyland is playing it. He played in a high school jazz band.
There we go.
But it's going through a guitar amp, and it's a little distorted, which is why it sounds that harsh. And that's another one of those melodic lines that would be really frustrating for like a real saxophone player to play, because it's just da 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 da, just over and over.
But you don't expect something at that register when it comes in. It's really like, it's like much lower than what I don't know, it's very exciting when it comes in, so. My last question for you guys, because we're basically out of time, is what's next? What are you excited that you're working on, or what are you excited that other people are, like what are you looking forward to in your own work, or elsewhere is fine too, if you're more interested in your own work, so.
I'm really excited about this piece. It's happening this summer. I have a lot of different kinds of things that I feel really lucky to be involved with. I'm working on a new musical with James Lapine and Michael Corey about LSD use in the 1950s, which is a fascinating story. It's not, Summer of Love. It's as an exploratory psychiatric drug. People would go to their psychiatrist and they would be observed for 5 hours. And anyway, it's a fascinating story. So I'm working on that. I'm also working with Mel Benjamin on an adaptation of the Kevin Kline film Dave, which seems like a really good time to do a presidential musical comedy. I saw this movie in college back in 1993, and I just remember being so moved by it and thinking, at that point, man, if we had a president like that, and this sort of idea has driven me that I always feel like it could be a really emotional musical. So Nell's a great collaborator.
Does Donald Trump have an identical twin that we are unaware of?
Someone actually sent around something from Facebook where someone actually posted that and said, we wish that Donald Trump could be replaced by Donald Trump. And actually,
Dave Trump.
Dave Trump, exactly. So anyway, those are some things and Brian and I have a couple of pieces also. There's an adaptation of a beautiful film called The Visitor that Tom McCarthy wrote and directed with Richard Jenkins, which is another very timely and feels like an important story to tell, and we're actually here at the public doing it, which is a dream come true. I've done, as you have so brilliantly, the Shakespeare in the Park productions, and that's to now be here developing an original musical with the Public Theater. I feel very fortunate to be doing that.
Awesome. And Mitski,
Well, the thing is, with rock and pop music, there's the album cycle, and I'm still technically in the Puberty 2 album cycle. I have to keep touring it. The album cycle is like 1 to 2 years, depending on how much you want to milk the album. And I'm really milking it, so I'm gonna be on tour for a while. So I have music already done and written and recorded. Don't quote me on this, but I can't put it out until like middle of next year because I have to be on tour for Puberty 2 for a long time. So that's kind of where I'm at.
How do you like touring?
I've come to love it. I think that I used to think of it as like this vacation from real life that didn't count as my life. But then I found that I was on tour 9 months out of the year, and I can't discount 9 months out of the year anymore. So I started to just like face it and see it as my life, and therefore like regulate it and make sure I get sleep and make sure I eat, and that's made it better than like seeing it as a vacation. But also, now I enjoy it because the thing about being on tour is that you can pretend you don't have your problems, and so I can just go out on the road and think I'm someone without, a human being without problems, and now I'm afraid to not be on tour anymore because I would have to come home and face my problems. So it's like a great escape from the psyche that
Until it all comes
until it
home.
all comes down.
And I have to say too, working on American Idiot and seeing the touring life that, you know, that this, especially, you know, Billy Joe and Mike and Trey Cool all having families at that point in their careers when they had started, obviously, as teenagers together. I'm so it's just like in awe of how you keep that part of your life together, and you go and you are in front of all these people, and then you go and have to regroup and perform. I just think it's something that, you know, for someone who dreamed of it, and to actually see people do it, it's unbelievable, the commitment and the stamina and the sacrifice to put yourself out there. So I'm in awe of you that you do this and bring your music to everybody.
Thank you.
Well, on that note, I want to thank Mitski and Tom Kitt for joining me on this stage. And I want to thank all you beautiful people. Shameless plug, we have our very last of these. I can't believe when it started, it felt like we had so many, and now it feels like we have too few. Tomorrow night we have Ben Pasek and Justin Paul, as well as the amazing Kanon, so that should be pretty awesome. But these two people are the most awesome. Thank you guys so much, and thank you all for being here. What a wonderful evening.
Thank you to Michael and Pablo.